All right, welcome back, everybody. So, as we said a little bit earlier, most universities across the country remained closed yesterday following continued protests about affordability of fees. Some have pushed back the exams and suspended all academic activities, but certain universities, it seems like it's back to normal. One of them being cited is the University of the Free State, with students seen going in and out of the campus. They've been granted a week's extension to prepare for examinations. Last Friday, the student leadership said President Jacob Zuma's 0% increase was a victory on the first phase of their struggle. So let me once again introduce who I've got here representing the ANC Youth League is its spokesperson, Mlondolozi Mkhize. Thank you very much for being with us again. Also from Pasma, we've got Ndiyakholwa Ngqulu. Thank you very much for being with us here on the program. And Nazley Sharif, and Nazley is from DASO. Good to have you.
Thank you.
So we got your perspective as to how you're feeling right now, and I suppose your demands going forward and what one of you are saying. I want to just turn my attention, your attention and all of our attention to what happened at the union buildings, because all of us were so impressed by student activities, and then suddenly things went wrong at the union buildings. All of you were there, if I'm not mistaken, and I'd love to get a perspective as to what was going on in the crowd on Friday. Do you want to pick this up?
Yes. Thanks, ma'am. Let me start from both. I think I must give two perspectives in this issue. Firstly, I was in the meeting with the President Jacob Zuma.
Okay.
And secondly, I was in the side of students after the meeting with the President.
Right.
Since I was meeting student leaders. With the President and the Minister of Education, the Deputy, and also Minister Pando, the rest of Vice Chancellors and the Chairpersons of Councils, what we tried to pay emphasis to them was that students outside there, the first issue might be we have raised through the issue of fee increment, but the fee increment is no longer an issue to students now. The solution that they want is a free and quality education.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to make point to them. While at some point they try to understand the issue, they also want to justify why and how we cannot get it. And we're saying with them, even the Cliptown document, if you call it, or the Freedom Charter, if you call it, it's recognizing the free education that it's what must get. And we're saying this must not be a political statement, or it has been a political statement for many years. Now it must be an action. That's what we're saying to the President at that time. We're saying the state is in a position to deliver free education to our students through its national resources. That's our argument to the President. Now, in conclusion of the discussion with the President said, no, there must be further discussions on this issue. But what we ask from them is simple. We say we are also students. That means we have some minds to think. We're not stubborn. We know that we're not going to sleep today, wake up tomorrow with a free education.
Yeah.
We're saying this must be a phase going there. But we're saying a phase going there means the state committing itself to a particular number of years. To say, for example, by 2019, as for example, we will also start our free education. Now, if you commit yourself, it means you must then have steps gradual that will work towards getting free education. Now, we are saying if the state president, together with his cabinet, are not committing to say 2019 or 2018 or 2017 or 2020, we will get free education, it means we might still again live another 20 years to come without free education because no one is committing a date.
Yeah.
And we're saying at that point, we said the president of the country must commit himself to the cause of the free and quality education. And we believe that because of his background, that he understood that because he didn't have money, he couldn't go to school. He very well understood what it means not to have money to go to school. So that was the perspective inside the meeting.
So you wanted more than just the president coming out and saying, okay, fees won't rise. You wanted more. You wanted a commitment, a path forward. You wanted something more from the president than what he gave you. I'm going to come back to you. Now. Nazley, you were standing in the crowd.
Yes.
You were there. You weren't necessarily a part of the meeting. You were in the crowd. Now, when it was announced that there would be a 0% increase, was that not a relief? Because my understanding was that was what students were hoping for, that there would be a 0% increase, and that was the issue on the table.
Well, Leanne, we first started at Burgers Park, where we all gathered at around 9:30. We then made our way up to the union buildings. And by then, the atmosphere was very much one of hope, where we were on our way to the union buildings and we expected good news. When we got there, everything was calm. Everything was calm, and we expected the president to address us by midday. By the time midday came, the president didn't come out. So there was a lot of irritation and agitation within the crowd, waiting. I mean, we've been waiting in the sun for many hours, waiting for the president to come out and address us. And when he announced that there will be no increase via media, instead of coming to speak to us directly, there were a lot of students that got upset, and you know, justifiably so. Except I do think that how the students handled the announcement in a way where they started breaking down the fences, you know, and demanding answers from the president. I mean, yes, it could have been done in a better way, but and we must also be cognizant of the fact that in South Africa, the country that we're living, and by no means are we condoning violence, but the fact of the matter is, the only way to get government or anybody to listen to you is by taking those necessary steps. And I think that's what the students did. And they felt that that would be the only way that the government would hear them. And the fact that
by burning police vehicles, by burning cars
that
outside.
Didn't happen. That happened after. I'm talking about what happened within the union buildings.
And that was
students.
That's what I want to elaborate on. Was that not students?
No, we'll come to that. Those are not students.
Yeah, I'm talking
we'll
about.
Come to it now because I think it's important. I mean, we see visuals on screen and talking to students. So I think that message needs to be clear.
No.
Who was that?
Okay.
Can I just make a comment or two? Look,
you can, but I really want to know who that was. Who was burning cars and causing vandalism?
After the march was in this way. After students were dispensed through the rubber bullets, there were buses, remember, that brought students there. And those buses departed. I can quote and say to you, the staff buses for TUT departed. The buses for VETS departed. The buses for Limpopo departed. The buses for UG departed. I can strongly tell you and say, regardless of t-shirts that were worn by those people were not students that were burning cars there. Were other people who, for whatever reasons, had hijacked the cause for students.
So you don't know who they were?
Student leadership to expose those students.
Do you know who they were? Do you know who they were?
No, I cannot say I know personally who they were, but I can say when we get out of union buildings, we did see that at least these people are not students, those were that we seen at that time, because students have left, most of them with their buses now. Whoever had the agenda to burn the cars are not students, because students of TUT that are seemingly are accused have left at that time. Students of UJ have left, unless you want to tell me that the few students of Tekis who stay in town were the one who burned cars, which I don't believe that they were. The other third force who was behind the hooliganism that happened on Friday. Students were angry, students were frustrated, they showed their frustration in union buildings, but they did necessarily not take their frustration in burning the cars and looting the innocent stores and in town. There were other people who, for whatever reason, hijacked the video of students.
Okay. Mlondolozi, I'm coming to you. I promise I'm coming to you now. Just quickly add to it.
Just to recap what happened there, the first tear gas that was that fell from the sky, it dispersed many students. So what happened is a lot of the students left the union buildings. Once calm was restored, all the student leaders took from the universities and tried to restore calm within their ranks. And they came back to the union buildings and everybody was calm, everybody was singing. And then all of a sudden, I was sitting on the side, 3 tear gas landed from the helicopter. We were being shot at with rubber bullets. I mean, for me, that was one of the most saddest parts, because as we were trying to evacuate the union buildings, there were people that couldn't walk because the tear gas was so bad. You know, we had to help each other out. And by the time we got outside of the gates, I mean, first of all, we were forced to leave the union buildings. We were not asked to leave as human beings. I mean, we are human beings at the end of the day. And we were basically chased away like animals out of the union buildings. And all the students left. The buses were there. I saw them. People were getting into their buses and they were leaving. So I agree. They probably
there was a
were not
third
students.
Force
Absolutely.
happening. Okay, Mlondo, I know that I've kept you waiting. There was one comment, and I know you've got more to say, but perhaps you can add this into it. There was one comment that Nazley had said. I'm not sure if you said it on air or off air. You were saying that one of the big problems was that the president does not respect the students enough.
Yes.
he didn't come out and address the students, and that was a big concern of theirs. Let's speak from the ANC Youth League's perspective. I mean, because, intricately, you are a part of the ANC, besides the fact of being a part of the youth as well. So you have the political and student agenda at heart here. So give us your views now.
Look, I had hoped that you would have invited the president of SASCO, because there are many things that need to be said, because people must not suggest things and insinuate things that are really not what happened, with an intention of scoring some form of gains here and there. Look, firstly, the president did not refuse to go and address the students. When the meeting finished already, in the park where students were, there were things that were banned. Toilets were banned. There were trees that were banned on that day. Now, the question ought to be asked, because we must, as the youth, learn to be responsible, take blame and admit mistakes where we've done so, and equally isolate, just like Ndia was saying, that there were elements of the third force, but we cannot attribute the entire violence and damage of property to the third force. That's incorrect. Second is to say that the inability of the youth to coordinate themselves and have one leader of the march, even though we came from different political spectrum, that was necessary, because when you have a leaderless march and a leaderless society, everyone assumes leadership, and therefore no one begins to be responsible for what happens. Let me just narrate a story. We met some students. They were saying they have been striking for years, and they don't think that students of vets, they can come here and steal the show because SABC News or SABC is just a street across them and they can be covered. As a result, they can never be commanded by anyone from vets. That created, because that unit was very important, that then created disunity and everyone wanting to lead himself or herself. Now, let us speak facts again. Before police started shooting with stun grenades, we must agree and admit that there were people who wanted to break the fence that separates the park and the beginning of the park of the union buildings. I was there myself with the deputy, with the Secretary General of the ANC Youth League, Comrade Ndiyakholwa Ngqulu, with the TG, Comrade Rich and Tandi, the TSG. We were with a group of white students. We were shouting, "No violence." And the group of students, in fact, were going around recruiting other people to say, "We did not come here to vandalize. We came here to listen to the president." Now, let us speak other facts again, because we must not suggest that the state, although it responded in an uncalled for manner, but it was not necessary. How do you have stones thrown in? Because if you can go to the park of the union buildings, you will find stones there. And in that park, there is nowhere where there are stones. Where were those stones coming from? Is it the third force? Is it students? Is it people who are agitating or trying to do something? I want to say it for record that Ndiyakholwa Ngqulu was there agitating people, saying that they must break down that wall.
Okay.
We saw him, and people were busy being provoked unnecessarily. Some of them were sponsored with alcohol to be agitated. But let us go to the incidences that later on happened. Now, we will disagree and differ on some of the elements, but we need to maintain one element, which I think that we agree on with the colleagues, that there was an element of a third force. But to suggest that the buses of vets, UJ, TUT, they left very early or immediately after the strike is not true. At 5:30, I was still by the hotels there. The buses of TUT vets were still there because there was an accusation from students of vets that students of TUT are blockading them. But equally, the students of TUT were saying that police are blockading them. Then there were stones in the street.
Yeah.
The question needs to be asked, who was throwing stones in the street? Because if we're to build the youth that must build this country and take this country forward, we must not shy away of admitting where we've done wrong. We must not shy away in isolating those that were trying to use the genuine student protest for their own gains.
Okay.
I think that's the point I wanted to
make.
All
right. Let us take a very, very quick break. We're going to come back, and I know there's so much to talk about. We're going to come back, try and wrap it up in the best way we possibly can. So stay where you are. We'll be back after this.